Ben here, back with another video for you. Today, I'm going to do a time-lapse video of cutting the 15 logs you see here next to the sawmill. And while you're enjoying watching me cut, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about myself and my sawmill. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to all the new subscribers and everyone who's been watching and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate all the feedback and any kind of suggestions that I've been getting through my comments. The logs I'm cutting here are all black walnut logs, and it really made some nice lumber that I'll be showing a little bit later in the video. I did this cutting over a 2-day period. First day I cut about 7 logs, and then I show some of the lumber, and then I cut the remaining 9 logs and show that lumber. So be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video if you want to see the black walnut lumber, and if you want to, you can fast forward to that point. Now, I want to start off by saying that I bought my sawmill back in September of 2016, so I've only had it a little over a year. And this has been a big learning curve for me. It's a learning process, and it's a hobby. It's something that I'm doing because I enjoy cutting wood. I enjoy the challenge of moving logs around. I've always liked kind of tinkering in the carpentry hobby. I'm no professional craftsman, but it's always nice to be able to build your own projects with your own lumber. In the past, I've always bought rough cut lumber, planed it all down, and then used that lumber to make the projects that I'm after. It's cheaper to buy rough cut lumber than it is to buy a finished board, but at the same time, it's a whole lot cheaper to cut your own lumber. One of the problems with that is you have to go out and dry all of your lumber, and it takes roughly a year per inch for your lumber to dry. So air drying it out in the yard isn't ideal. It's taking a long time, and I'm just now getting to the point where I'm getting some lumber where I'm building some projects. That's where I stand. I'm going to be doing some videos here in the near future showing some of the projects that we have been building lately from the lumber out of the sawmill. And I have posted some other videos. If you look back through, you'll see some projects that I've already built, but there are much more coming. Now, before I get too long-winded, I just want to take a time out here and show you this lumber is going to be coming up here. I cut 7 logs and stacked them out here. And what I did was, I know that I have only a limited number of these logs here, so I wanted to cut them all and get them organized before I went and stacked them all. So I cut the lumber and I laid it out here just for the night, and this is the next day coming back to finish cutting the rest of the stuff. I just wanted to show you some of these wider boards are about 8 inches wide, and the small ones are probably the smallest is 4 inches there. But even a 4-inch walnut board could be used for a number of different projects. Now this is the second day of milling here. I've got 9 logs, and it's more of the same. It's just, these logs aren't the biggest logs. They're kind of small. A lot of them are crooked, have a bad curve or twist to them. But it's something that, if you don't want to go out and pay big bucks for walnut lumber, it's better to just mill your own. Now, some of the questions I've received about the sawmill. If you look at the sawmill, it kind of looks like it's sinking in the dirt here. It's really not. If you watch some of my other videos I show where I put sonotubes in the ground, we drilled holes, poured concrete, set the sawmill up on it, bolted it to the concrete so that it stays straight and true and doesn't tend to dip. As I'm cutting, there's a lot of sawdust blowing around, and the saw seems like it's sinking. It's really not. It's just a buildup of sawdust around the sawmill. I do stop and clean the sawmill out every so often, usually about once a week. I'll clean up my slabs and I'll clean up the sawdust. I've been doing my best to try to get as many logs cut up before winter sets in too hard. I plan to cut all winter long, but at the same time, I wanted to get as many of the logs cut up and cleaned up before it got too cold out to be doing a whole lot of sawing outside. So back to what I was saying about the sawmill now. When I first bought the sawmill, I put it up on a platform thinking it would be better to work at a higher height. And it is a little easier pushing at a higher level, but then you have to use a piece of equipment to put the log on every time. I found that if you put the sawmill right down on the ground, it's easier to just roll the logs across one at a time, put them up on the sawmill, and then cut them, versus having it up on a platform and having to get a piece of equipment to load each log. Now I know the other option is to put it up on a table or a platform and then build a log table and set all the logs on a table and roll them across one at a time. And that is an option, but I just find it easier to put the sawmill down on the ground and roll the logs across one at a time and cut them. A lot of people comment that I'm wasting a lot of lumber, I'm wasting a lot of boards. I cut too big of slabs off the outside of the logs. And I've addressed this once before in another video. I just want to say again that this is just a hobby for me. This is something I'm doing so that I can have a few boards to make some projects. The extra slab wood, it doesn't really bother me if there's, a board that I missed out of some of the slab wood. It's just not worth it to me to run the blade through an extra couple of passes to gain an extra 1x4 board. The blades aren't cheap to be buying more or to be sharpening them, and it's just easier for me to just cut to the chase, cut down through, cut a nice square cant, and then cut some nice boards off of it. It's still a whole lot cheaper than going out to the big box stores and buying lumber. Most of my logs that I get come from urban logging. I'll get on Craigslist and I'll find a landowner that's looking to get rid of a tree and doesn't have the money to pay a big tree service company to come in and cut the tree down. I'll do the tree cutting for free as long as there's no obstacles and I can get a trailer in to the property to load the log on and bring it home. After I'm done cutting this lumber, I always take it out back, stack it, and air dry it. I really want to get into building a kiln, and that's probably one of my next projects that's coming this spring. I want to build a solar kiln to be able to dry the lumber at a faster rate and a little bit more efficient than air drying it. In my next video, I'll show you taking the lumber out and stacking it, and I'll explain a little bit about how I go about stacking it to keep my lumber to dry out and keep it out of the weather a little bit. So stay tuned for that video. This is the last walnut log that I have on the mill here. And as soon as I'm done, I'm going to show you the stack of lumber that I have. I just take, when I cut the lumber on the sawmill, I put it out in an area where I can get the skid loader to it to drive it out across the yard to stack it. So this is just a staging area. Really did some nice lumber here. There's 15 logs there, and you can tell some of these piles are 6-inch wide. I think it ranges from 4 inches up to 8 inches wide. So there really is some nice lumber here. Some pieces are a little bit small, but walnut wood is something that I'll take every little bit I can get. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you stay tuned. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.